Here's a closet. This is my $20,000 fur coat with my daily backpack. I got it because it blinds the poor people, you know? I was seated with peasants in economy class for the first time in my life.
Here's how I spent $200,000 in a week in Japan because I was spoiled. Here's how to shop like a billionaire. Today, I'm heading to the order to restock my closet because I only wear clothes from the latest season and only once.
By now, you're probably aware that Chinese people and designer brands pretty much go hand in hand. After all, you'd be hard-pressed not to go into Shanghai, Beijing, or the Chinese international student area at your local university and not see someone dressed from head to toe in what is probably the cost of a down payment for a house. So how exactly does a Chinese person who makes 40k a year wear a 20k outfit on the weekend? What East Asian cultural values causes them to do this? And what are the effects? Oh, and by the way, feel free to skip to this timestamp if you just want to see me call out and expose fake rich Chinese influencers. To put it simply, and the boring answer is, most of them just save. And that just kind of ties back to how the cost of living in China is just cheaper than the West, where a lot of food, housing, and utilities are subsidized by the government, which ultimately just allows people to spend more on non-necessities like designer clothing or a holiday. But what if you can't save that much or want multiple outfits? Well, an option is to rent designer items just to wear on days out. But what if even renting is too expensive? This is where the funnier answer comes in. There is a phenomenon which started back in 2020 called 平息息民怨群, which roughly translates to group buy socialites. Another YouTuber, Jay Gao, has a great 8-minute video on that. But TLDR, there are group chats in China that you can join, and essentially as a group of like 60 plus people, rent an item and pass it around for a few hours each day between each person for a month or so. Another example would be having 40 people pitch in for a single room at the Bulgaria hotel and then take turns taking selfies, pretty much just using it as a photo op to flex on social media. Of course, people in the West also spend money on designer clothing, but rarely would they go to such lengths to craft such a false luxury aesthetic. So why do they do this? If you live in somewhere like America or Australia, chances are when you'd splurge on some, let's say, designer jacket, it's likely you see something you like, you swipe, you smile, and call it a day. Now imagine you're Chinese, buying that same jacket in Shanghai. Your eyes see the same jacket, and yet your brain fires off a dozen pop-ups. Will auntie flex it on WeChat? Does my boss think promotion energy when he sees it? Are my friends about to roast me for trying too hard? And the reason for this all boils down to two cultural factors. The first factor is about the idea of 面子, which the closest English translation to this would be face, in the context of losing face, which is what happens after being publicly humiliated. In a gaming analogy, it's like a social high score meter. When you lose face, it's like lag spiking in a ranked game and the whole lobby notices and clowns on you for it. Trip on stage at your graduation, that's a face plant. Graduate top of your class, face points rain from the sky. Because in face culture, how someone sees you means everything. Like people will spend some serious mental bandwidth on how every choice from dinner reservations to designer handbags will look under public lighting. The second factor is about how we define ourselves. In much of the West, identity is like a single player game. Your victories are yours. Your embarrassing breakdance fails are also yours. And your sibling's PhD doesn't magically upgrade your LinkedIn headline. Psychologists call this independent self-construal. In China and many parts of East Asia though, life feels more like a shared universe. I includes the whole family WeChat group, the office squad, and even the 5-stack I play League of Legends with. I might be gold, but my friend's diamond, so I'm also pretty high elo. Anyway, this is what's known as interdependent self-construal, and it means your personal network is spread to everyone you're connected to. Keep this in the back of your mind, because I'll come back to this later. Now, layer those two factors on top of how we decide what things we should buy. Marketing scholars Smith and Colgate say products deliver 3 flavors of value. Functional, does it actually do anything? Expressive, does it send the right social signals? And experiential, does it feel good? In the West, experiential value often hogs the spotlight. If the jacket or handbag sparks joy, swipe that card. In Asia, however, experiential and expressive values form a duo, joy as well as social resonance. And if that's still confusing, here's an example. If I use Migaku to learn a language, then it's providing me with functional value. If I tell everyone I use Migaku whilst drinking matcha, taking photos with a digicam, and reading All About Love by Bell Hooks, It's providing me with expressive value. And if I use Migaku daily before bed as the therapeutic experience in itself, then it's providing me with experiential value. Let me show you guys exactly what I mean. Now, as you saw earlier in the video, I used some sources from Chinese social media. And to fully understand the nuance of these jokes and references, you ultimately have to know Chinese. And with today's sponsor, Migaku, you can learn Chinese from content you actually enjoy, such as C-dramas, music videos, online articles, and more. Migaku is incredibly interactive. Every subtitled word is clickable for instant translations. But what really impressed me is their dynamic Chrome extension, which breaks things down in real time. It supports plenty of video sites like Netflix, YouTube, Disney+, and any online content like articles, websites, social media, and more. Plus, whenever I click on a word, Migaku saves it as a flashcard, complete with definitions and example sentences directly from the show. But if you like learning in a more traditional way, Migaku also has comprehensive Chinese courses, which have been meticulously crafted to cover everything from pinyin and essential vocabulary to complex grammar structures and cultural insights.
我的学校有1/3的学生来自美国。
They also have a mobile app, which you can watch YouTube directly from and learn new words without needing a laptop. Finally, with Migaku's OCR feature, you can turn photos from real-world text into personalized lessons. See a sign or an interesting article, snap a picture, and start learning. You can even turn pages from your favorite Chinese novel or manhua into interactive lessons. If you're planning a trip to China or just curious about learning new languages and cultures, even basic language skills can totally transform your experience. So ditch the textbooks and the green owl and start learning with Migaku today for just $10 a month. Or if you're like me and prefer lifetime access over a subscription, click on my link to get 50% off. And Migaku works for all these languages as well. I've been personally using it to learn Japanese. Huge thanks again to Migaku for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get back to where we left off. Ever bought something purely because it makes you feel great? That's the power of experiential value. That little dopamine hit that makes shopping so addictive. And if your self-construal is more independent, like many people in the West, this is probably what you prioritize. You buy things because you like them. And hey, there's nothing wrong with that. But flip the script to China and most of East Asia, and things shift dramatically. Wang and Ahuvier's research gives great example of this. Imagine there's a cheap, sweet wine that you actually enjoy, and then there's a pricey, dry wine that you absolutely can't stand. In Western culture, it's a no-brainer. You grab the one you like. But in many Asian cultures, people more often than not choose the expensive wine they dislike just because it signals higher status in public. That's the expressive value kicking in. And it's powered by interdependent self-construal, where other people's perceptions directly shape your identity. And just on a side note, it explains perfectly as to why Malta is the most valuable liquor company worldwide. Like at 53%, this shit literally just tastes like $500 hand sanitizer. But there's more. To fully grasp why Chinese consumers are so obsessed with luxury, we need to understand something called public and private meanings. Public meanings are shared and well-known meanings. Luxury brands spend absurd amounts to ensure everyone knows exactly what they would be owning if they buy their stuff and what their product signals. Because luxury isn't just about being expensive, it's about what it symbolizes. Achievement, status, and wealth. Private meanings, on the other hand, are personal, like a family watch your grandfather passed down. Scholars argue Western consumers tend to emphasize private meanings, cherishing things that hold personal significance. Asian consumers, however, often prioritize public meanings more. Not saying they don't cherish things of sentimental value, but rather because how others see them heavily influences their own identity. It's the concept captured beautifully by the ancient Chinese phrase 先敬罗衣后敬人, which translates to, first people respect the silk clothes, then they respect the person wearing them. So it's really no wonder luxury fits Chinese culture so seamlessly. It's the ultimate flex, a surefire shortcut to securing face and respect. And this is pretty much why the stereotype of Chinese people always wearing designer isn't just superficial vanity. It's deeply tied to the culture itself. Finally, conformity plays a huge role in China and East Asian societies, as it's a legacy of Confucianism. The ideal Confucian personality is someone who prioritizes duty and harmony above personal desires. If you conform, even reluctantly, you are seen as virtuous, putting the group's well-being first. Compare that to the West, where giving into peer pressure means you failed to be yourself. Back in East Asia though, This need for conformity is the reason someone might choke down that dry, expensive wine in public. They're putting collective harmony above personal preference. It's also why so many people feel trapped in a cycle of maintaining this image of wealth and luxury, even if it's financially and emotionally draining. And so what starts as an attempt to gain face can easily spiral into an endless cycle of appearances, expectations, and pressure. Now, aside from spending money recklessly and feeling stressed to maintain a specific aesthetic, the effect of this phenomenon generally isn't all that terrible. However, with that being said, because you're essentially acting as though you are someone you aren't, that being someone who is actually wealthy, this character, which for multiple reasons is not a good person to pretend to be, can sometimes take over your real personality, and you end up becoming this terrible person in real life. There are multiple cases like this in China, so much so that the Chinese government actually banned outwardly flaunting wealth on social media. And I want to talk about two people who are an example of this when it goes too far, both whom also happen to be influencers that have somewhat of a following in the West. One which is lying about who he is and profiting off someone else's name to grift a following and fabricate that billionaire lifestyle. And the other is literally a pathetic scammer who has taken this too far and is essentially stealing money directly from her gullible followers. These two, of course, would be the infamous J Ma and Madison CEO.
My name is Jay Ma, and I'm the richest international student at the NYU.
Alright, if you're chronically online like I am, chances are you've probably heard of the international kid. This guy supposedly claims to be Jack Ma's son. Spoiler alert, he's not. Jack Ma, founder of Alibaba, actually does have a son though, named Ma Yuanqun, and he's 33 years old. Definitely not this TikTok guy. If you haven't seen his content, he literally stages videos making people film him outside of luxury stores like Gucci, Louis Vuitton, and Burberry, pretending to buy stuff for his alleged girlfriends. He flaunts cars, clothes, watches, you name it, he's flexing it. And honestly, it's just cringe. Like, actual rich people don't do this. Now, I get it, he's playing a character, and by all means, he's probably a fine person in real life, but is he really playing a character if no one can tell where the joke ends and reality begins? Think of other comedy TikTokers like Will Gibb or Lachlan Fairbairn. These guys openly share their real selves alongside the characters that they're playing. But the international kid, it's like he's permanently stuck in character mode. It feels less like comedy and more like scammer and con artist vibes. And I only say this because if you Google his supposed name, J Ma, his LinkedIn pops up, claiming he's the majority shareholder and financial advisor of China's biggest company. Like, seriously, you're not the financial advisor of shit, mate. Not to mention, pretending to be one is also highly illegal, but he probably doesn't care, and he's obviously riding this wave, appearing on podcasts, probably paid, talking about his so-called luxurious life as Jack Ma's son. And here's the kicker. In this one podcast, he openly criticizes the Chinese government.
It's hard in China because there's eyes watching everywhere. There's censorship issues, right?
Trust me, if Jack Ma was actually your dad, you'd absolutely never get away with this. I mean, even he didn't get away with this. The comments on his content are predictably mixed. You've got skeptics wondering if any of this is real, and younger viewers who idolize him, leaving comments like, "Bro, I wish I was you." But here's the thing. Living like this, constantly flaunting an exaggerated superficial life, isn't just pointless, it's damaging. If there's one thing I've learned from the show Lord of Mysteries, highly recommend by the way, it's that playing a character long enough eventually makes you become that character. We've seen this happen in real life too, especially with method actors who lose themselves in their roles. Imagine being this guy actually believing his own persona. And I only say that because to rent and possibly even buy all this stuff, you don't have to be a billionaire, you just have to be somewhat wealthy. He genuinely seems like he could be an international student from his accent. And so his family back home in China probably has like a decent amount of money, at least to be able to send him abroad. So honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if it eventually gets to a point where he becomes so deluded that he just thinks he's better than everyone else, if he isn't already like this.
And lastly, I hate it when the poor people breathe.
Now onto Madison's CEO, the literal scum of this earth. And I say this with good reasoning as well. She claims to be the CEO and co-founder of a billion-dollar company with a random capital C for company, which would make her probably the most illiterate billionaire in the world, by the way, and apparently the most influential under 40 of Asia in 2024. with zero context given. Like her source is literally just trust me bro. But let's have a look at her content.
Hey everyone, welcome to my house tour. Let me show you some of the most ridiculous things that I've bought to make this place feel like home. First up, we've got an art collection. I'm a big art fan, so I fill my house with all these paintings and sculptures from famous artists. They are anywhere from 20,000 to 100,000 each. Honestly, I have no clue what half of them are about, but they look pretty cool, don't they? This stool from LV is one of my favorite pieces. And we got some Tiffany and Dior champagne glasses. This one is from LV. It's actually one of my favorite. Next up is the Hermes whiskey glass set. I mean, I don't drink, so these are all just for decoration. This is actually the most useful item here that I will use every day. Straws from LV. They are metal, so they are environmentally friendly. Let me know in the comments which one is your favorite and what do you want to see in part 2.
So basically her whole thing is pretty much the same as that J-Mar kid. All she does is go around flexing how rich she is. The only difference being she's actively selling a course on how to get rich. So I'm gonna channel my inner CoffeeZilla and expose her for who she actually is. Madison Zhao is not her real name. Her real name is Liang Qiting, and she's actually somewhat of a former public figure in China from the early 2010s. She participated in the ATV Miss Asia pageant in 2012, which, no hate at all, it's a very impressive achievement. And she even appeared on a popular Chinese matchmaking show, If You Are the One, back in 2013. The only thing is though, she claims to be 24 on her website, meaning if that were true, this would be her at 12 years old. She also claims that her supposed company is on the NASDAQ, New York Stock Exchange and the Stock Exchange of Hong Kong, and as proof she posts photos of herself in front of said stock exchanges. However, on closer inspection, you can see very easily that this image is blatantly photoshopped and then cropped from the original photo taken from the Rept Batterer IPO back in 2023. Like, blurring out the faces already should have been a massive red flag. And going back and looking at this NYSE podium photo, it feels like she's trying to deceive people into thinking that this was the photo taken at an IPO for her company. But that's not the podium people stand at when they IPO. This is the actual podium. Where she's standing is the podium any visitor at the NYSE can stand and take a photo at, as seen from all these examples. But if you've seen her content before, you might be wondering, doesn't she have a mansion in LA where she always shows off? Well, personally, I find it a bit weird that her house that she claims to be living in is listed on Airbnb. This pool is the same, the couch and the living room are also the same. Like, it's very obvious after knowing this that she's just rented out the place for a day where she filmed all her content and has been posting it over and over again on different days. Furthermore, Madison CEO often flaunts on her socials of being featured on magazines such as Harper's Bazaar, Vanity Fair, Maxim, etc. And that's probably something you think can't be faked. And technically, it isn't. She's genuinely featured on Harper's Bazaar, Serbia, Maxim, Philippines, Vanity Fair, Denmark? Okay, so these clearly are not the core international publications, rather local magazines that use the licensing of a brand name. But someone still needs to write it up, right? Well, here's a little industry secret. There's a website called Baden Bauer, and on this website, you can actually pay to have these licensed name local magazines feature you on them. And oh look, on the front page, we can already see Harper's Bazaar and Vanity Fair as options. And if I click on this Vanity Fair box to see what I'm actually getting featured on, oh, that's strange, it takes me to Vanity Fair, Denmark. You might be wondering, how do I know all this? Well, I'm going to expose myself a little bit here. I've actually done something similar like this in the past. So I'm a music producer, and a couple years ago, I actually did an official remix for Havana Brown. Anyway, to promote this remix, the label actually paid a similar service to have the magazine We Rave You feature and do a write-up about me. So what Madison is doing is literally all a sham. And again, I wouldn't really care that much if it wasn't for the fact she's literally running a scam, selling a get-rich-quick course, pretending that she's a billionaire with some sort of mystical knowledge, when in reality, she's a nobody, at best a washed-up reality TV star from China. But let's have a look at how much she's making from this scam. She has 2 courses, one which takes me to her school page where she has 9,500 members, each paying $3 a month. So just from that, she's making $28,500 each month, $342,000 a year. And then on her website, she sells another course, one that's $99 but currently on sale for $20. And this one offers things like one-on-one calls and exclusive hiring opportunities, which is very interesting because that means she's most likely exploiting desperate, probably unemployed people for personal gain. Oh, and she has a Douyin account, China's TikTok, and everything she posts is totally different. And she's just an average vlogger. Like, oh, what a surprise, in a country where you probably don't want to fuck around and find out, you're a clean slate. And finally, I noticed, if you scroll down on her website, she has a contact, privacy policy, and a terms and conditions. You can click on the contact and privacy policy, but for some mysterious reason, you can't click on the terms and conditions. I genuinely feel like if I signed up to this course, I wouldn't be able to cancel the subscription. If you're watching this and happen to be one of the unlucky 9,500 plus people scammed by her, I feel sorry for you, and honestly, I think you should contact and report her to the Ministry of Justice in China. This is the email. If you enjoyed my video, make sure to subscribe for more similar content. I talk about all things East Asia here, and the next video will be very controversial. You won't want to miss it. If you want to share your thoughts, please comment below. I would love to hear it. Oh, and of course, if you're eating right now, I hope you're having a wonderful meal. I'll catch you later.